President Biden meeting with leading members of Congress Wednesday. We covered that big on the show yesterday to try to push forward this $110 billion aid package to Ukraine, Israel, and other top allies. It's been stalled, this funding, as Republicans demand action on the border. And the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, holding out for a wish list of security measures there. So we want to bring in a lawmaker who was at the meeting, and Congressman Adam Smith, Democrat, Washington State. So how would you characterize it, Congressman, as, I heard we played a little clip of the Speaker and Leader Schumer, talking about some sort of progress. Was it productive, and if so, in what areas?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was productive. It was a good, constructive conversation amongst all the key players that have to figure this out. And there was wide consensus around the table, certainly on the need to help Ukraine right off the bat. I mean, we got an update on the state of the battle there, and, Putin just yesterday reasserted his claim to all of Ukraine, and there's considerable concern that Ukraine will not be able to stop that if we don't re-up our support. But then also there was strong consensus that we need to do something about border security. There is no question that there are too many migrants coming into the country right now and creating challenges all across the country, and we need to make changes in those laws. So I think there was agreement on that. We got to get to the specifics. And our biggest concern expressed, from the Democratic side was that the Republicans will insist on, something more each time. They won't take yes for an answer on the border, in part because they want to hold on to the political issue, and in part because they want to have it exactly the way they want it. I mean, we are willing to make substantial changes to policy. They have to be willing to make those too.
Right. Okay. So the question there is, will the president also face some pressure from progressives in your party to not go too far, to not give in too much? Headline of the Wall Street Journal about Biden on immigration, saying that he accedes to tougher immigration policy to deflect criticism and secure Ukraine aid, with a White House spokesman and the administration always leading the largest expansion of lawful pathways in decades, working with partners across the region to address irregular migration, enforcing the law by removing and returning more than 482,000 individuals who have no legal status to remain in the U.S. So this is a president now who seems willing to move more and more to the center, but I wonder if the progressives in your party are going to let him, for lack of a better term. Is that an issue?
Oh, sure. I mean, two things about that. One, I think the president and all of us have recognized the challenge. Now, we need to recognize a huge part of this is all of the people who are coming from other parts of the world because of the disastrous conditions there. 7 million people have fled Venezuela. And we've got a huge challenge, not just in the U.S., but all up and down Latin America. So there's that, and the president has recognized that. I think the reason he's shifting on this is we need a policy shift to address that problem. And yes, there are some on the left of the Democratic Party who won't support those changes. But the president's made it very clear he's willing to advance the right policy even in the face of that criticism.
What's one example of a policy change that makes sense to you? I was talking to Congressman Cuellar a little bit about this as well. The Democrats, where the Democrats think, you know what, maybe that does make sense. We could move on that. What's one example?
Yeah, well, I think, and I would steal what Henry, said. I think changing the asylum laws. Right. It's too easy for people to come across the border, claim asylum, and then stay for years.
And the president agrees he's there?
Now, I've read H.R. 2. Yeah, absolutely. I've read H.R. 2, which basically wants to eliminate asylum and deport absolutely everybody in the U.S. who is here in an undocumented status. And I think that's too far. I think that's bad policy. There are people in the U.S. who've been here for years, who are working, paying taxes, productive members of the community. I think we need a more thoughtful approach than that. But absolutely, we cannot have a complete open door on any and all asylum claims. And we've seen the impact of that across the country, even in my district.
Right.
We have a church in my...
Oh, go ahead and finish that thought. So it goes even as far as where you are. Is it?
I was going to say, yeah, there's a church in my district, in the city of Tukwila, which is a city of about 15,000 people, that opened its doors to refugees and asylum seekers, and they're completely overwhelmed now because word got out that this was a place you could go. So from people all over the country, they've showed up, and the states had to declare a state of emergency to try to accommodate the needs of all of the migrants coming. So this is a nationwide problem, without question.
Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.